Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. So I'm continuing on my director retrospective of P.T Anderson. So today I'm looking at his third film, Magnolia. Now this stars a slew of actors including Tom Cruise, Jason Robards, Julianne Moore, Philip Seymour Hoffman, John C. Reilly, and a variety of others. And the film really is an epic mosaic of interrelated characters in search of love, forgiveness, and meaning. The film begins with a narrative telling us three separate stories based on the theme of coincidence. From there we meet 9 characters whose lives are all connected in one way or another. We follow them all over the course of one day and watch their lives change forever. This is a fantastic film in my opinion. I think this is his grand film, magnum opus. It's big, it has a huge ensemble cast, and it's just an engaging movie. At a 3-hour runtime, that would turn most people off, but you don't feel those 3 hours. You get connected with the story and the characters and you go on the journey with them. That the running time doesn't matter anymore. P.T Anderson is just fantastic. Each film he's made gets better and better. His ideas get bigger and bigger, and the cast gets bigger. There's a lot of cast members that he used from Boogie Nights that reappeared in this film, such as Julianne Moore, Philip Seymour Hoffman, John C. Reilly, and a variety of others. And it was just interesting to see the carry on over from that particular film into this. This film, like I said a moment ago, looks at coincidence. It looks at interconnection of things and how some things just happen. They're just coincidence. But if you look at one thing, there's multiple things connected to that for that to actually happen. And this film sort of looks at that idea. We sort of start the film with 3 coincidence stories that happen. We get to see them unfold. The first one is 3 men are hung for a crime that they committed, and they're hung at Greenberry Hall. And one of the men was called, his last name was Green, last name Berry, and Hall. And then talk about the coincidence of this. Another one looks at there's a forest fire and they use a plane to drench the fire out with water. And upon that they find a scuba diver in a tree. And it goes back and explains that this guy was scuba diving and the plane actually picked him up. And then it goes back even further and looks at the pilot of this plane had a fight with this man previous that he had met in a club 3 days earlier to that. And the third one really looks at this man who tries to kill himself. He jumps off the building. What starts out as suicide turns into homicide. And what really transpires, this young man was trying to kill himself. As he jumped past a particular window, a gunshot went out, shot him, and that's what killed him. We find out the person that shot him is actually his mother, and that the mother and father usually fight with the gun, but it's never loaded, and the guy decided to load the gun because he was sick of their bickering and fighting. So he ultimately caused his own death. And it just looks at the coincidences of that. And that's sort of explains the whole film in a way, those 3 incidences. They look at the different stories that happen and how some things just happen and how one thing leads to another and they're all connected in some way. And that's what this film really looks at, and I really like that aspect. After these 3 stories, we open up on a TV screen and they start to introduce particular characters. We meet Frank Mackey, played by Tom Cruise. We meet his character, who's a motivational speaker. But we're introduced to him, and then through the TV we're introduced to William H. Macy's character, who used to be a whiz kid and won a lot of money, and now is an adult and feels lost in his world. We're introduced to another young kid who's on a game show, as the smartest young kid. And we're also introduced to Julianne Moore, who's the wife of Jason Robards' character, Earl Partridge, who's dying of cancer. And then we're introduced to Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, who's the nurse of Earl Partridge. And we meet John C. Reilly. And it just looks at, we get to meet all of these characters in the first, 10 minutes of the film, which is interesting. And then the story slowly unfolds. And we see how each character interacts with the other and the impact of that. The film is filled with a variety of themes, such as regret, loneliness, forgiveness. It looks at how our past that we try and forget, can sometimes rear its ugly head and appear once again. And appears with stuff that we think we've dealt with, but we haven't really. And this sort of film looks at that. It looks at the characters that are involved in this movie, and the story that's unfolding and how they all interconnect with each other. I sort of want to spend a bit of time talking about the actors. Everyone does a brilliant job here. I think Tom Cruise is fantastic. He was Oscar nominated for his supporting actor for his performance here, and it's well deserved, especially towards the end of the film where he confronts his father who abandoned him, played by Jason Robards, Earl Partridge, and how he has a hatred for him and there's a sadness in him, and he wants to know why his father left him and why his father left when the mother was sick, and you know, Frank had to look after him. And I thought that was an interesting element. And he's so fantastic in it. He really is one of the best things about it. And that particular scene between father and son is what every actor, I think, looks for. It's such a powerful scene, so well done, and it affects you and it floors you as an audience member. I think Philip Seymour Hoffman's fantastic in this. He underplays the character of Phil that he plays, the nurse. He's just really great. And he's the only character in the film that really isn't filled with regret or sadness. He's ultimately, or loneliness, he's ultimately just trying to help out Earl Partridge. And I like that. He's trying to track down his son and trying to help him through this period of him dying. And he's just so great, and it's the most underplayed character I've ever seen Philip Seymour Hoffman play, and he's so great. Jason Robards is another standout here. He actually died a year later after filming this of lung cancer, and he played a character who had lung and brain cancer. So it must have been quite a powerful sequences that he's in. And it makes you start to wonder as an actor where acting ends, reality begins. And he must have been able to draw from a lot of the illness that he had to put into that character. It's quite sad and shocking to see this particular character go through what he's going through. Julianne Moore does a solid job as well, playing the wife of Earl Partridge. John C. Reilly's kind of interesting as a cop, a lonely cop, trying to help people but trying to also look for love. Love's a big theme within this film and the other films that Paul Thomas Anderson has made. And it's about connection, it's about people. And everybody who we see interact with each other does a fantastic job in this film. William H. Macy plays a sort of sad and lonely man who's got a lot of love to give, but he doesn't know where to put it. And I really like that. I think P.T. Anderson has a great way of creating a realistic environment and really colourful and interesting characters. And it's really the characters that are the key to the whole thing. Circumstances unfold and we go through that with the characters, but it's the characters we follow. It's the characters that really direct us through this particular story. There's a handful of sequences in this movie that I really love. The Tom Cruise, Jason Robards father and son sequence is really powerful and beautifully done. And there's a moment where after we've seen all of these characters and what they've been through, they all start to sing the same song. So this song starts playing, we hear it, and then each character sings it. Tom Cruise, Jason Robards, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Julianne Moore, John C. Reilly, and it goes through all of them. And this is a really powerful sequence, and I really love it on so many levels. This film is just fantastic. It's a grand film, it's big, it has a big ensemble cast, but it's telling a simple story, a basic simple story of people and people wanting connection, they're wanting love, wanting to look at forgiveness, and they want to look at letting go of the past. It looks at them being lonely and wanting to connect in such a strong way, and not realizing that they are part of a bigger thing, and that it's not just coincidence, but it's an interconnection of people. And this film really captures that. I love the fact after the success of Boogie Nights, P.T. Anderson was able to make any film he wanted to, and this is what he chose to do. He chose to make it 3 hours, he chose to tell the story he wanted to tell, and it's original and unique. And he has such a clear vision and voice within this film. That's why it's his grand picture, I think, in many ways. And I really like this film, and it's up there as one of my favourites of his movies. Every time I see this film, it sort of blows me away. I forget about how great it is, but every time I return to it, I draw something else from it, something new. Wherever place I am in life, I draw something different from this film, and I think it's fantastic. And I absolutely loved every moment of this movie, and I just felt captivated and drawn into the particular world that P.T. Anderson was creating here. Anyway, that's all from me today. The next review I'll be doing is Punch Drunk Love. That's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying these videos. I'm going to continue doing them. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.